So when you want to take a call, make sure you hold the phone with your hand and answer your call correctly. Hello, welcome to Noble TV Live with Lady Kevin. Today we're going to be looking at telephone etiquette. Now we all know that there are ways of taking calls, there are ways of returning calls, and there are ways of dropping calls. Now, so many persons do not know the etiquette of answering calls, but today I'm going to read you some guidelines to help you when you're taking calls or when you're making calls. Now, always speak clarity. It is very important to speak clarity. When you pick your call, when you have a call and you take your call, always speak loudly, speak clear, so that the other person at the receiving end hears what you're saying. It is very, very important to be clear when speaking on the phone. Secondly, do not yell. Yes, do not yell. Now you know that this phone is placed in the ear. The eardrum is affected when you yell too much because it doesn't like too much noise and can be damaged. So when you're taking calls, do not yell. Some people have the tendency to be on the louder side when they speak. Try to bring down your voice. Even if you're the person that speaks loudly, take the phone a bit far from your mouthpiece so it doesn't get to bang when the other person is listening. Don't use slang. And now, don't use slang comes when it's in a business environment. Now, before we go further, this etiquette is two-sided, the personal and the business aspect. Now, in the business aspect, do not use slang. You have to be very official. When taking calls, you need to be very official and you need to be cautious. Do not use slangs because you don't know who the person or who is on the other side or who is at the receiving side. So you have to be very simple, very straight, and let people understand what you're saying. So the aspect of using slang is a no-no in the business area when it comes to telephone etiquette. Never eat or drink. It is not allowed. It is not right. It is not ladylike if you're a lady or gentlemanly if you're a man to eat or drink when you're receiving calls, because it tends to stop some things you say and it makes your voice not clear for the other person to listen. Also, in the business aspect, eating or drinking and taking calls, it's a no-no. It can actually earn you a sack or, you know what I mean, a suspension or even a query. So the aspect of eating and drinking when taking calls in the business sector and also in your private life, it's a no-no. Always listen. Now, some people take calls. They don't even want to listen to what the other person is saying. They all go out talking and not giving the other person a listening ear. It is very important to give listening ear to your caller or to the person you're calling. Tend to keep quiet. Let the person finish talking or telling you what he or she has to say and before you retaliate. Because if two of you talks, then nobody will listen. It definitely will bang. So it's always better when you do the talking, you go mute for the other person to talk while you do the listening. Always use proper titles. It's very important, especially in the business sector. Always use proper titles. You never know who is calling. But what if you're the one calling? If you hear the voice and you know it's a masculine voice, or you go by the name on your register before you call, the word Mr. is always good. The word Miss or the word Mrs. or Madam is always good. So when you're making calls, especially in the business sector, always use the proper titles. Have patience. This also have to imply in the business sector and also your private life. Now, when someone calls you, in the aspect of complaint in the business sector, someone calls and complains about something or about a service. All you have to do is to be patient. Be patient and listen carefully so you know what to reply the person. It is not always good to be rational. It's not always good to be harsh, especially when a client calls. So in the business sector, whenever a phone call comes in and it's a call of complaint, Always be patient. Even if the client is wrong, all you have to do is be patient. Don't forget the word in the business sector. Every customer is right. So, in telephone etiquette, every customer is right when in the business sector. So always be patient to listen to what the person has to say. Focus on the task at hand. Now, when a call comes in, do not direct your conversation to something else that is not the basis, that is not the reason or the motive for calling. If someone is stating an issue, address the issue the way it is. Don't try to divert or deviate from line of discussion. It's actually not good, especially in the business sector. Also, actively listen and take notes. Now, some persons might tell you things you might tend to forget because you are not a robot, neither are you a computer. So always have a notepad and a pen by your side, especially in the business sector. And when these calls come in, all you have to do is take down notes so have something to rely on. You don't have to forget, especially when there is a complaint from a client. It's very important to take down notes. Use proper language. Don't use the bad language. Don't use the pigeon language, especially in the business sector. Always use the proper language, a language that everyone would understand. And now, when you're talking to the older ones, there's a different way you speak to them. When you're speaking with the youth, a different way entirely. Now, some older persons do not really know how to communicate in proper English. They use the English that they know, which is called the pidgin. If you are in line with the pidgin, you go ahead, say it the way it is. Use the same language that person will understand. But if you cannot, put the person on hold and get someone that will communicate better with that person in the language he or she would understand. But please, before you put someone on hold, ask before putting that person on hold. It's very important for you to ask, or before transferring a call from one person to another. It's very important you ask. Do not do that abruptly, because if you do that, the person might misinterpret what you're trying to do. Now, when it comes to the business sector, there are three P's. There are three P's of telephone etiquette, and I'll run you through the three P's. One, promptness. You have to be very prompt in taking calls. Don't let the phone ring over and over and over again before you pick the call. So promptness is very important. As soon as you hear the phone ring, it's very important you pick the call ASAP. Number two, professionalism. You have to be professional in taking calls, in speaking to clients, in receiving calls. You have to be very, very professional because it's a business sector. But your private life, you're free to do whatever you want to do because the person might be a family or a friend. Number three of the three P's is politeness. Politeness. You need to be polite. Now, some persons are not polite when it comes to telephone conversation. They tend to be very rude. But it's very important to take the rude aspect off you and be polite. Whenever a call comes in, even if the call comes with an insult to your person, you still have to be polite. You don't have to trade words. You don't have to insult back. You don't have to throw tantrums or give the exact measure that has been given to you. You just have to be polite, and definitely everything will turn out fine. And also always learn how to calm situations. Always learn how to tend things, or always learn how to tame things. Learn how to calm situations is very, very important. We also have the four E's in telephone etiquette. Be a name caller. I'm not asking you to revert to your childhood ways and tease the people you speak to on phone, but you have to be very direct and you have to be very, very professional, especially in the business sector. Be mindful of volume. Speaking too loudly or speaking too softly will only prove to be a distraction during your calls. Stay focused and also use proper hold procedures. There are ways of holding your phone. Now, sometimes you put your phone to your ear and you use your shoulder to hold the phone. It's very wrong. The person at the other end might not hear what you're saying clearly. So when you want to take a call, make sure you hold the phone with your hand and answer your call correctly. Because If you use your shoulder to place the phone or to hold the phone, it might go to the mute button or it might go to the end button, and then this person will think that you abruptly ended the call. So there are perfect ways of holding your phone when you're receiving a telephone or when you're in a telephone conversation. These and more I would like to bring to you, but for now, this is where we draw the curtain on telephone etiquette. Do not forget to subscribe, share, and like Noble TV Live. I am really Kevin.